This fascination of trying to theorize who the Kurds, the Turks, and so on come forth is pointless. Were they Hurrians? Were they Mitannis? Were they Gutians? Sumerians? Name a non-Semitic pre-Iran population, and they were Kurds. For one thing, none of these identities of the past are what they refer to themselves as now. Secondly, nobody gets any credit for their past, or who they were in the past, or what they accomplished in the past. The West could care less that once upon a time, the Islamic world raced past the West when it came to optics, math, trigonometry, astrology, chemistry, and so on and so forth. The modern state of Greece doesn't get any credit for its past as the founder of Western civilization or as the birthplace of philosophy and democracy. Italy doesn't get any credit for its past as the heartland of Rome or as the birthplace of the Renaissance. We have a long way to go in terms of proving with certainty to the unconvinced that we rule. And once we do end up proving it, who will actually care about that information? And what is anybody going to do with that information? The Arabs are just as guilty of doing this too. Instead of just trying to accept the fact that Iraq, for example, is not a historical nation, it's a new nation in West Asia, no older than the 20th century, despite being referenced in Ottoman sources. Instead, they choose to deny and obfuscate. That doesn't matter. It's a recent invention. It was a province carved out of the Ottoman state by great powers. So why is there any need to legitimize the Arab presence in Iraq by claiming that the Iraqi nation state has continuity with all of the pre-Arabian and pre-Islamic civilizations of Mesopotamia, like Assyria, Babylon, Sumeria, or whatever? It's not necessary, and it's pseudo-historical and pseudo-scientific. America has only been a nation for about 2 to 3 centuries. It has conservatively 2 centuries and a half of recorded history. 4 centuries, if you want to count the colonial period. It's only been a country with about 250 years, roughly, of history. Maybe a bit less than that. Yet it's the most powerful country today and the leader of the world community. It produces a higher quantity and quality of individuals and zip codes that create more advancements in science, math, and technology than most of the historical states with over thousands of years of history that still exist. A culture in the old days? Let's look at the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait. Those are all non-historical nations which have barely even existed for 100 years. Yet you would rather live in any of those countries than you would live in, let's say, the heartland of the Indus Valley civilization, inside modern-day Pakistan, which has history dating back to thousands of years, or in East Africa and Kenya, where human history began. You don't need history anymore. You don't need culture anymore. We invented culture back when we were all still cavemen as survival mechanisms. It's the 21st century now. Technological advancements have basically rendered the old guard obsolete. Our water supply is indoors, our food supply is indoors, and it can all be bought through money. We have shelter indoors now and not in caves. Even manual labor, employment, and jobs are going to go the way of the dinosaur in the next couple of decades because it's all going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, and that's a wonderful thing. Therefore, we're going to see a new intellectual revolution in this lifetime because humanity is going to move on to better things for the best. So you having an older civilization and history doesn't mean that you're more cultured or better. just means that you're older. You've technically existed for much longer. And if you really want to talk about history, more science, philosophy, and contributions to humanity of substance has been developed in just the past 100 years. The stuff that's been invented in the last 3 to 4 decades has been of greater lasting value and substance than anything that was invented in the age of antiquity and after it, in the colonial era, or in the Renaissance, or in the Industrial Revolution for that matter. The 19th and 20th centuries and the 21st century have been more interesting than in any other previous centuries. The centuries before the 19th century, or heck, in the centuries even before the latter half of the 20th century, are essentially irrelevant. The fact that you have history or culture doesn't make you attractive. If you have culture, that just means that you have a culture. If you have a history, that just means you have a history. The art of attraction is a science, an entity in and of itself. So what if you have history or culture? If people don't find you attractive in any way, then why do they care? And this is where I end my dissertation. Thank you for watching.